Hello my bookworms, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sydney and today's video will be some autumnal fall spooky book recommendations. So hey, what's up? Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me for a little bit. I have a stack over here that I am actually really excited to talk about because prior to this moment right now, I have this far in my booktube career felt like I haven't read enough to adequately make recommendation videos, you know, come out here and say, I think you should read this book. And I think that that's changed. I think that I have some legitimate recommendations for you guys that you should read this fall season. So let's talk about them. The very first one that I want to talk about is one that I read last year in 2020. This author is absolutely fantastic. She has a writing style that I have never even come close to being able to compare to anyone else. There is a consistent undertone of eeriness and wrongness to whatever is about to happen, and it's just incredible. And the book that I want to mention, written by this author, is Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. This book is definitely kind of fall-ish, kind of spooky, unsettling vibes. It follows our two main characters named Roger and Dodger. Roger is skilled with words and languages come easy to him. Then we have Dodger, who is skilled in mathematics. Now, these two main characters, Roger and Dodger, aren't exactly human. They were created by their creator named Reed, who has a prophecy for them, something that they are to fulfill. But this plan that he has is for them to raise to their highest power and to ascend with them and claim their authority as his own, while they take him to the impossible city. Now, this book is a little bit of a chunker. I mean, it's like a little bit longer than a normal size book, you know what I'm saying? But it is so gripping. It's so good. And it is a little bit of a slow burn. So if you really enjoy following characters from when they're young up until like present day to where they're like really going off and things are really happening, then this is your book because it is unsettling. It is weird. It is a little bit occulty. It is a little bit alchemically, you know what I'm saying? It's so good. The next book that I want to recommend to you is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. I know that this book has been going around BookTube a lot recently, but I wanted to add it to this list because I think that if you haven't read it and you like a little bit of unsettling, kind of body graphic-ish horror, kind of, this is your book. So in this story, we have our Hollow sisters. They are three girls who disappeared when they were young, and they came back kind of under really strange circumstances. No one really knew what happened, how they disappeared, and neither do they. But they did reappear with a half-moon scar at the base of their throat. Now they're older, but one of the older sisters, Gray, has gone missing again, and they think that it is under the same circumstances as to what happened with them when they were younger. Now the two younger sisters, Iris and Vivi, are left trying to figure out what has happened, and they're having to come to terms with what occurred when they were younger, but they're not the only ones looking for Gray as well. As they brush against the supernatural, Iris realizes that the world that has returned them 10 years ago might be calling them back. Now this book is kind of shorter. It's on the shorter side, and it is jam-packed with eerie, like I said, kind of body horror-esque things going on. Tied in with this sort of like continuous ominous feeling, there is a mystery because we don't know what this world that is calling to them is about. We don't know what exactly is happening. Why are these sisters different from when they went missing and then when they returned? Like, what is going on? It is a whole mood, and it's perfect for the fall. So if that sounds like something you're into, I definitely recommend picking this up. Okay, so now I want to talk about two books that are not everyone's favorite, but are two of my favorites. If you have been here before, you probably know what they are. But the first one is Bunny by Mona Awad. Tied in with this, I could also probably add in her newest book, which is All's Well, because anything this author writes, I am immediately obsessed with. I can't even handle it. But Bunny is by far my favorite of everything that I've read from her, and it is so absurd. I'm obsessed with it. I will never not love this book. I have a specific reading vlog where I read it, and I can link it down below, but there were times that I was reading this book that I was just like laughing out loud because of how absurd it really was. And therefore, how much I like related to it and how just like on point it is. It's amazing. It's so ridiculous. And I'm trying to like put it together for you. Okay, ready? So in the story, our main character's name is Samantha, and she's part of this like highly selective writing major at this college that she's at. And in this class, there is her and then 3 other females who call each other Bunny. They're kind of this like really tight clique that is really strange. You know, they're just like, they call each other Bunny, and our main character hates them with her whole being, her whole soul. But one day, the bunnies invite Samantha to their kind of like out of school workshop called the Smut Salon. And despite her hatred and uncomfortableness towards this group of girls, Samantha goes anyways. And she finds herself plunged into this like cultish, ritualistic workshop where they conjure these monstrous creations. And like so much happens. If you personally do not like obscure, very weird, very off-the-wall books, ideas, theories, this is not your book. But if you do love weird, this is your book. It's so good. And the other one that is kind of weird that got some very mixed reviews here on BookTube, but one that I love with my whole self is also Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. This one, advanced reader's copy. I found it in one of my neighborhood, you know, like those birdhouse bookshops where you can like exchange a book, you know, like how cool was that? I found it in there and I was super stoked about it. I read it in one day, and let me tell you, that was an experience in and of itself. I think that if you do have the time to read it in one day, especially with the audiobook while you're reading it, I think that that is an incredible reading experience. My mind was literally living in Catherine House by the time I finished this book. I had a several hour detox where I was like, no, Sydney, you are in Indiana. You are not at Catherine House. You need to relax. Because by the time this book ended, I was not okay. And I just looked at it on Goodreads. It has like a 3-star rating. Oh my god, I gave it 5 stars though. I love this book. That's honestly so funny. So this book is basically about a school named Catherine House hidden in the deep rural woods of Pennsylvania. It is the crucible of reformist liberal arts study, housing its experimental curriculum and very selective admission process. This school has produced some of the most creative, well-renowned minds of prize-winning authors, inventors, and artists, Supreme Court justices, and presidents. For those who are lucky enough to be selected, tuition, room, and board are free. But you have to give up literally everything to come here. No contact from the outside world or anything. And when our main character Inez's roommate named Baby gets herself into something not great, our main character decides to, you know, look into it further and finds herself in her whole entire predicament that leads us to, you know, what's going on, and it's crazy, and I don't want to spoil anything because it's a ride. Definitely worth the read for me. I loved it again, but it's not for everyone. But I personally recommend it to everyone. Okay, next, I want to talk about 2 different series that you can start if you are a series kind of person that kind of vibe with the autumnal, you know, spooky time vibe. There is one that I have read and one that I have not read. So I'm going to start with the one that I have read because I know that I can vouch for it. And that is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This series is amazing. It has a prequel named The Pale Dreamer. It is a really short novella, maybe like, it's less than 100 pages. It's on Kindle. I'm sure you could find it if you wanted to read everything in order. But the first book in the series is The Bone Season. And in this world, we follow our main character, Paige Mahoney, and she is a clairvoyant in a world where clairvoyancy is deemed a criminal offense. So she has discovered this underworld of clairvoyants who are basically avoiding persecution from the law. Now, Paige Mahoney is not only a clairvoyant in the underground, but she also has a father who is high up in the Scion regime, which is the government. So she's kind of living a double life. In this first book, was nothing what I expected. It was absolutely incredible. And right now, I believe there are 4 books in the series. I could be wrong, but I think there are 4. Regardless, I say that this is a spooky, like, autumnal read because it has a lot to do with the supernatural. What Paige can do is called dream walking, which is a specific type of clairvoyancy, and there are many other different categorizations of what clairvoyance can do in this world. And it all ties around to like this paranormal kind of vibe, and it is written so well. I love Samantha Shannon's writing, and I think that you would too. The next series is one that I have not read, but I have heard it recommended time and time again, especially around the autumn season. But this series is The Diviners by Libba Bray. From what I understand, this is a paranormal series timed in the 1920s New York City. And our main character, Evie, has been exiled from her hometown and to live with her uncle in New York City. And this uncle just happens to be dealing in the occult. And Evie worries that he'll discover her darkest secret, a supernatural power that has only brought her trouble so far. But when the police call Will to the crime scene of a murdered girl branded with a cryptic symbol, Evie realizes her gift could help catch a serial killer. As Evie jumps headlong into a dance with a murderer, other stories unfold in the city that never sleeps. And unknown to all, something dark and evil has awakened. So from what I hear, this has all of the vibes of fall and spooky season, tied in with a roaring 1920s vibe and supernatural, occult things. So I hope that one of those series sounds great and you pick up one of them. Again, I love the Bone season. I plan on picking this up soon, but I would recommend them both. Next, I want to go with some witchy books. So I don't have my copy of this book because my neighbor is actually currently borrowing it, but the first witchy book that I need to recommend, I would be fake if I didn't put it on this video because I love it so much, is The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. I read this book last year during October, and I wish that I could read it again for the first time. I love it so much. For this book, I'm literally just going to give you like the vibes about it, okay? So our main character is kind of an outcast, and in her town, it's kind of like a cult. It's basically a cult. That is the total vibe that I get from this book. Within this town, there is this vast woods that are deemed, I don't remember what it's called. Hold on. Because the name of the woods is kind of important because it sounds spooky. You know what I'm saying? It's called the Dark Wood. And this is the place that the town's first prophet chased and killed 4 powerful witches. And within this wood, it is believed that their souls and spirits are still lurking there. And one day when Emmanuel, our main character, was coming back from town, she got drawn into the woods where she met the spirits of these witches, and they bestowed a gift upon her, which was the diary of her dead mother. And thus Emmanuel is struggling with the idea of how did her mother come in contact with these witches, and the things within the journal is a little bit unsettling, and she begins to learn the grim truths about the church that resides in her town, Bethel, and its own darkness. So this book is really all about kind of like religious cult and, all of the witchy vibes. It is so immaculate. I love it so much. Definitely gave it 5 out of 5, and I recommend it. Now, a couple of the next ones I haven't read, so I can't put like my firm stamp of approval on them. However, they are books that I am excited to read, and I want to put them in this video anyways. And this one is Sleepwalking by Meg Wolitzer. This one tells the story of the 3 notorious death girls, so called on the Swarthmore campus because they dress in black and are each absorbed in the work and suicide of a different poet. Sylvia Plath, Anne Sexton, and Wolitzer's creation, Lucy Asher, a gifted writer who drowned herself at 24. At night, these death girls gather in a candlelit room to read their heroine's works aloud. But an affair with Julian, an upperclassman, pushes sensitive, struggling Claire, she of the Lucy Asher obsession, to consider to what degree her death girl identity is really who she is. As she grapples with her feelings for Julian, her own understanding of herself and her past begins to shift uncomfortably and even disturbingly. Finally, Claire takes dramatic measures to confront the facts about herself that she has been avoiding for years. I think that this book just fits this whole, autumnal vibe because these death girls are meeting during moonlight to talk about they're dead poets' favorite works. And I mean, that's fall, you know? But I think that this book sounds absolutely fantastic. I think that I'm going to go off of my scheduled October TBR and read this book because I've wanted to read it for over a year, and I actually forgot about it until after I uploaded my October TBR, so we might read it. It has a lot of my favorite things, you know? Spooky, candlelit poetry readings, like hello, count me in, and then a little bit of drama, you know what I'm saying? Like, this sounds like one of my favorite books, so here it is. The next one is one that I have not read, but I was gifted to it from my Amazon wishlist, and it is These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. This cover is really cute. It has little tarot cards on it, and it's really, really sweet. And I genuinely know nothing about it, but it is witchy, so I'm putting it on this list. This one says, Hannah's a witch, but not the kind you're thinking of. She's the real deal, an elemental with the power to control fire, earth, water, and air. But even though she lives in Salem, Massachusetts, of course, her magic is a secret she has to keep to herself. If she's caught using it in front of Reg, which means a non-witch, she could lose it for good. So Hannah spends most of her time avoiding her ex-girlfriend, Sapphic, hell yeah, and fellow elemental witch, Veronica, hanging out with her best friend and working at the fly-by-night cauldron selling candles and crystals to tourists, goths, and local Wiccans. But dealing with her ex is the least of Hannah's concerns when evidence of the dark magic begins to appear all over Salem. Hannah's sure it is the work of a deadly blood witch, but her coven is less than convinced. So Hannah is forced to team up with the last person she wants to see, Veronica. Am I sensing an enemies to lovers? Or lovers to enemies to lovers? And while the pair attempt to smoke out the Blood Witch, Hannah meets Morgan, a cute new ballerina in town. Ooh, love triangle. Trying to date amid a supernatural crisis is easier said than done, though especially when the attacks on Salem's witches become deadlier by the day. Now, with everything she loves on the line, Hannah must confront this murderous villain before her coven and any chance she has with the new girl is destroyed. Ooh, and this is a series as well. I didn't know that. So there's a second book called This Coven Won't Break. So this is a series as well. The more you know. But I think this sounds really sweet. Again, can't put my official stamp of approval on it, but it has witch in the title. I've had it for a while. It sounds cute. I've heard some pretty good reviews about it. So here it is. The next book is a 2021 release, which also deals with witches, and I'm super excited to read it, hopefully soon. I think that my October TBR is really not accurate, because I think I'm going to go way off of it this month. But this book is A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. I have heard nothing but great things about this book, and our main character has my same last name, so you know, already in for a good time. And our main character is Felicity Morrow, who is perched in the Catskill Mountains, the centuries-old ivy-covered campus, which is believed to be haunted by the Dalloway Five, which is 5 girls who have all died on the campus under very strange circumstances. Witchcraft is woven into Dalloway's past. The school doesn't talk about it, but the students do. In secret rooms and shadowy corners, girls convene, and before her girlfriend died, Felicity was drawn into the dark. She's determined to leave that behind now, but it's hard when the Dalloway's occult history is everywhere, and when the new girl won't let her forget. It's Ellis Halsley's first year in Dalloway, and she has already amassed a loyal following. A prodigy novelist at 17, Ellis is a so-called method writer. She's eccentric and brilliant, and Felicity can't shake the pull she feels to her. So when Ellis asks Felicity to help her research the Dalloway Five for her second book, Felicity can't say no. Given her history with the arcane, Felicity is the perfect resource. And when the history begins to repeat itself, Felicity will have to face the darkness in Dalloway and in herself. Honestly, sounds so good. Sounds like a little bit of a spooky mystery on top of the witchcraft, and I am all about mysterious deaths. I think that they're so fascinating. I think that this sounds like a great fall read. And then I think that the last one, to make it an even 10, that I want to recommend to you is Mexican Gothic. I have no idea where it is in my room right now, but I read it last year, and let me give you a clarification. So I really didn't like this book for the first third. I really was bored. Wasn't really grabbed on it, but then I kept reading, and I ended up really loving this book. It says it in the title, but this is a Gothic horror. It is so atmospheric, and it is very unsettling. There were definitely parts that I was choked up about, and that's the point, you know? It was so good. It was, if you're able to push past like the first third and make it halfway through, it really does start to pick up. Some people loved it from the entire get-go, so take my opinion with a grain of salt a little bit. Go into it with an optimistic attitude, and I think that it'll be really good for you. It has gotten some mixed reviews, but I ended up really loving it. It's basically, from memory, about our main character who is sent a letter from her cousin who was just randomly kind of married off to this random guy who owns this big mansion. Oh, what's it called? High Place? I'm pretty sure it's High Place. Let me make sure. It's High Place. She gets a letter from her cousin who is married to this man, right? And it's basically saying some really off-the-wall things, like her cousin is basically asking for help, very unsettling, and it's just kind of strange, you know? So our main character, Noemi, is thrust into this kind of rescue mission where she goes to High Place in hopes of rescuing her cousin and bringing her back home with her. But when she gets there, she's meeting all of these people who live within High Place, and it is super strange. She's not really sure that she can trust absolutely anyone there. And soon, like, the vibes of the house and everything is even entering her dreams, making her dream of, like, doom and gore and horrible things. And soon, Noemi is basically mesmerized by this place and is finding it almost impossible to leave herself. And again, it got really, really interesting. I really loved it. I think it was my first major, like, Gothic horror book that I've read at that point in my reading career. And the atmosphere was there. It was absolutely fantastic. So I think that you should pick it up. Oh, and remember how I said that that was the 10th book? I just, like, choked on my spit. Apologies. That was actually the 11th, so it's not rounded out at all. So let's make it an even number, shall we? Let me talk about another series that you should pick up this fall, which is the Wayward Children series. The very first book is Every Heart a Doorway, and it is also by Seanan McGuire. This series they're all short books, right? They're all very tasteful in length, and you could definitely read them in a day or two. And again, it is Seanan McGuire's writing style that is just always eerie, very unsettling, but, like, exciting. You know what I'm saying? And in this series, you don't have to read them in order. Each story kind of is a standalone. They all kind of tie together in a certain way. So my two favorites are Every Heart a Doorway and Down Among the Sticks and Bones. This one is definitely my favorite by far, so far in the series at least. In this world, we have our characters that are different every book, and they are children or a singular child who find a doorway to their perfect world and a place that they feel like is home. However, something happens in their home where they get kicked out and they get thrust back into the real world, and their parents don't really know what to do with them. So there's this place called Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children, where they send their kids, and it's basically like a boarding school. But little do their parents know that it is kind of to help the children go through therapy and almost find their ways back to their home and find their doorway. And each book is different. So, like, the first book, Every Heart a Doorway, focuses most on Eleanor West's Home for Wayward Children. I can't say that whole, it's a tongue twister, okay? But while Down Among the Sticks and Bones focuses on the children within their home and, like, what they have to do and how they fall in love with their home. Like, it is spooky, it is eerie, it is awesome, and the vibes are all there. So I definitely recommend this series as well. I can't believe I almost didn't. And I think that that is all I have for you. I hope that you found even one spooky time autumnal book to read. If any of them do sound really good, let me know down in the comments which one it was, or multiple. And go ahead and leave the ghost emoji down below while you're at it, because I love him, he's my fave. And yeah, I think that's it. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe down below, like the video. I always appreciate your support. And of course, be kind to one another, and happy reading. Bye.